Belief is not something that we always come easily by, and James is proof of that very fact today. Now, James, as we heard, is the brother of Jesus, but he wasn't part of Jesus' disciples. In fact, as Paul lays it out in 1 Corinthians, James is not listed in the 12. So we've got the 12 as that first group after Cephas, Peter, that Jesus appears to after the resurrection. No, it's all the way towards the end. Not quite the end, because that's Paul, but it's way after the 12 that we see Jesus coming to James. So really, James didn't start to believe until after the resurrection. Now, as people, we are geared to believe that if we see something, if we see irrefutable proof, we will believe in it. James is evidence to the contrary, as is Jesus' hometown of Nazareth. We hear from their own words in the gospel that they have heard words of wisdom, that they have seen deeds of power, and yet they still don't believe who Jesus really is. And why would they? They know him. He's just that carpenter's kid from down the block. It's a small town. They would have known Jesus all the way growing up. So why would they expect anything magnificent and great as being the Messiah from him? Now, our hope with both James and Nazareth is that they do come to believe. James sees Jesus after the resurrection and becomes one of the great leaders of the church, great enough that we are celebrating his legacy this evening. And with Nazareth, it took quite a bit of time, but modern Nazareth celebrates the fact that they are Jesus' hometown. After a long, long time, they did come to believe. Now, our hope is that both James and Nazareth came to believe in who Jesus is. But for us, our hope is it doesn't take years and years and years for us to come to that belief. What we're called to do instead is to actually keep our eyes and our ears open, to pay attention to when we hear the voice of God in our lives. And we're also called to do what both Nazareth and James didn't do, to be prepared for God to come in those unexpected times and places. And that way, our hope is that when we see an example of God's presence in the world, when we hear the word of God, when we see God acting, that in that moment, we will actually believe.